No matter where you're joining us from, welcome back. Actually, welcome to the first ever WonderCon edition of Haunts-n-Heauxs. We are the podcast that covers all things paranormal while enjoying the most delicious craft spirits from across the country. Follow us on all social media platforms at Haunts-n-Heauxs. And of course, this is WonderCon, so follow all things WonderCon 2021 at WonderCon. My name's Jonny Loquasto. You can find me at jquasto on the socials. Let's get to my two co-hosts, the other two co-founders of Haunts-n-Heauxs. She's a veteran paranormal investigator, former team member on Ghost Hunters, a wealth of knowledge and especially attitude. Follow her at Ashley Troub on the socials because she's the brilliant Ashley Troub.
First off, I don't have an attitude. Also, I've never heard of Ghost Hunters, so that's really weird.
That's a perfect way to start. And she is certified in paranormal investigation and cryptozoology, a lifelong connection to the paranormal, our very own triple threat. She's Anastasia Washington.
Well, hi there.
You are done up, and it's good to see you.
I'm from a chicken ranch.
Okay.
Buddy, I'm done up too. I have a hat on. I have a shirt on. I'm done up.
Well, we are very excited to have three special guests, the most we've ever had on one single episode of Haunts-n-Heauxs. She co-hosts the creatively titled and very entertaining podcast, Ghosts-n-Heauxs. Just say that name over and over again. It's so much fun. It's one of my favorite paranormal podcasts to listen to. She is Nowal Z. Massari. Welcome to WonderCon.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here.
We are thrilled to have you here. And let's bring in our other two special guests. Without question, they're our favorite duo in the paranormal world. They teamed up for so many episodes together on Ghost Hunters on A&E. But make sure to check out their new YouTube page titled Formula of a Haunting, where they analyze paranormal evidence and disprove all the false positives that could be out there. But the big news is they have a brand new book that will be released to every realm this fall with Llewellyn Worldwide. We are so happy to have Brandon Avis and Mustafa Gatollari. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure. Always.
Yeah, this is going to be what a special show this is for us. Anastasia, we have a lot of things to cover.
Yes, we do. But I think we should start with, okay, so I feel like all of us have a gateway like that we got into paranormal. Like there was a image, there was a pop culture reference that got us interested in ghosts, aliens, cryptids, whatever it is. What was that for you? Like, what was the first like intriguing pop culture character that really got you thinking, I want to know more about paranormal. I want to know more about, etc.
Z.
Yeah, so obvious answer for me would be Ghostbusters. I was 5, and being 5, you don't know a whole lot about anything, but I got really excited the first time I saw it because the science part to me was so incredibly cool. Like, that's a real thing, because again, I was 5, and then years passed and I finally actually realized that that is kind of a real thing. So it's like, I want to do that.
Ghostbusters, perfect answer. Mustafa.
Beetlejuice, believe it or not. Slimer, nice. I love Ghostbusters, but I think Beetlejuice, that was like one of the first toys my mom took me to the store to get. And like 2 weeks later, I saw this awesome Venom toy, and she's like, I just got you a Beetlejuice one. I was like, I hate this thing. And I threw it across the room and I broke it. And then I cried for like hours straight, and I did everything I could to piece it back together, and I slept with that Beetlejuice toy for like a year. I was like, oh man, I'll never do that to you again. And I just like the fact that he had like I remember that scene. He's like, oh, where can a guy go when he's feeling a little anxious? And then he sees the house, the cat house, we'll call it, and he's like, the way he danced towards it, like I've been chasing that high of seeing that scene for the first time for the rest of my life ever since then.
That was me last week. I get it.
Yeah. And ironically, the only toy you say goodnight to 3 times. So that kind of works.
Yeah. It doesn't work though.
Truth. But my Candyman doll, what? I'm just kidding.
Yo. Brandon, how about you?
Well, Ghostbusters has always been a huge influence. As soon as I saw Egon with those little devices running around with that crazy hair, I was sold. But, Poltergeist, probably. That was a film that really changed everything for me because it was so, I think, realistic in a sense. I mean, obviously not being trapped in a television, anything like that, but The aspect of paranormal investigators being brought in, trying to observe activity. That was something that was really huge. But Egon, I think, really is the one that stands out. Crazy hair, amazing tech, very cool stuff. There you go.
Too.
Yeah, we love Harold Ramis. And for me, I argue with people all the time. To me, Ghostbusters 2 might be my favorite sequel of all time. And I know I'm probably wrong, but I think it's that great of a movie. Thank you.
You're right.
I love them both. I
Just
actually
like Grease 2 is the best Grease.
thank you.
There's no good
Thank
Grease.
you.
There's no good Grease.
100%.
I mean, Jankies, I don't even know where to start. So, it couldn't have been Scooby-Doo or anything like that. That wouldn't have gotten me into investigating or wanting to prove that people are the worst ghosts. But yeah, Scooby-Doo, that did it for me.
That's actually unexpected, but a really brilliant answer because, yeah, they did find a way to investigate. Granted, the answer was always pulling a mask off someone, but
it was always people, which I think maybe that's why I love paranormal investigating so much, is so I can prove that, like, some of these things aren't people, So I don't know. Like, obviously I love Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Scooby-Doo did it for me.
Now, Anna, you grew up in Los Angeles. You grew up in the entertainment industry. Every week we find out about some new movie you were in as a kid. Check out Die Hard 2. She's in it. So what's your gateway? Because, if anyone listens to the show, I mean, you were talking to your grandmother who was passed away when you were 5 years old. So,
yeah. Well, I think my gateway into finding out the stories and wanting to know more about entities in general comes from scary stories we tell in the dark. I was obsessed with reading it over and over and over again. In fact, I have a tea set with all the different little illustrations on it. Like, it's so iconic. It's so important to me. It's like one of the most important books of, I feel like there's books that define you. And I think that especially the visuals in it were they just got me. So I think that was the first time I was like, can I do something with this? What can I collect stories like this? Can I find things like this? What can we, I think that was definitely the most iconic, like, pop culture icon. I guess it's kind of a pop culture icon. It's a story.
Sure.
I feel like
It's now a movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously,
tell me I look like a lady.
Go ahead.
Because I make a certain face sometimes. And my friend was like, yeah, you look like that one lady, the ghost lady, the scary one, the one in the hospital. I'm like, that's rude, but also.
And you slapped her.
No, maybe I have to change my answer. I feel like maybe now it might be Goosebumps, because is that what gave me anxiety? Is the choose your own adventure Goosebumps? Like, that might be what messed me up for life.
And what Are You Afraid of the Dark? That whole television series, like, first of all, it gave me one of my phobias, and yeah, it just made me want to tell these stories. And my cat just loves it. So there you go.
R.L. Stein, anyone?
Sure.
Yes. What was it? Fear Street? That kind of a little bit naughty. Which was where they're like, he touched her cheek or something, and I was like, which one?
Well, while we're talking about television shows, I mean, besides obviously Ghostbusters, my answer was going to be something that definitely dove a little bit into the paranormal. That was Unsolved Mysteries, because as a kid, I watched that show every week, and I couldn't sleep every single night I watched that show, because whether it was true crime or whether it was something paranormal, it freaked me out. But I remember as a kid, that's where I really got fascinated. Obviously, Ghostbusters, yeah, I knew it was a movie, but Unsolved Mysteries, this stuff is real. And so that's what really piqued my interest.
That is a very good answer. Robert Stack's voice and the original Unsolved Mysteries theme song will haunt my dreams until the day I die.
No question. And the newer version of Unsolved Mysteries, they did a great job by not having a host, but in the opening credits, there's a silhouette of Robert Stack as the opening credits close out, which is a brilliant way of paying homage to such a brilliant guy and one of the greatest and scariest voices of all time.
Yeah, I'm so glad they didn't replace him.
Well,
Yeah.
when you guys are talking about like R.L. Stine, like just a quick thing, if you like Goosebumps, then Stranger Than Science is the collection of true short stories that inspired R.L. Stine to write Goosebumps. All of them are true. Everything's inexplicable in it. And like I read that when I was like 12, and there's some really, really cool stories. Like, check it out. It's really good.
What was that again?
Stranger Than Science. It's really cool. Trust me.
Marking it down.
Yeah, and I hate reading. I'm an anti-book advocate, even though I'm writing one. But like, I don't believe in reading at all. So like, read that. But if you're gonna
reading believes in you.
No.
This episode brought to you by Audible, ladies and gentlemen.
What would LeVar Burton say about that?
I don't care. I don't read. It's no consequence to me.
Okay, so we're talking about the stuff we love with pop culture. Is there anything the way pop culture portrays the paranormal that you're not necessarily a fan of, that might be a little bit too much? And then Z, I'll go to you.
Yeah, not everything is a demon.
Right.
Is probably my number one. Like not even in just reality TV, but movies, books, every bad thing, haunting, entity, whatever, immediately people are like, it's a demon. I'm like, no, it's not, probably. Like really, really slim to none chance that that's the thing that it is. But people don't like to hear that on investigations, especially. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, you don't have a demon in your basement. It's just a really unpleasant spirit.
Yeah, that or something residual. But Brandon, I see you agreeing there.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the biggest things. There's a lot of evil, demonic activity that's associated with pop culture, the TV shows, movies. But not only that, like 99% of the time, probably 99.9% of the time, there's a natural explanation to said paranormal phenomena. And that's something that Mustafa and I talk about a lot, and something that we advocate for. But again, I agree with Z in that situation where so many times, so many of the shows, so many of the movies, all that, it's evil, it's scary. But no, it's not really the case 99% of the time.
Mustafa?
The Warrens, like, I'm so sick and tired of like seeing stuff about the Warrens or like Devil Road, Fury Road, or whatever that is. It's like, just like come off of it. Like, if you go and you spend like 2 seconds looking into these people's lives, it's like they're snake oil salesmen. Like, there's nothing. I wouldn't let these people into my house to eat a dinner. Like, maybe if I didn't know who they were, but then once I found out who they were, I'm like, all right, you need to leave and like stay away from me and my family. Like, the more I learn about these people, like it's crazy. It's insane to me. It really is.
And for those who are watching this who don't know of the Warren family, we all know the background, but give us the background of why they're so famous.
Well, the Conjuring movies, there's been like documentaries done about them. And I just think it's, and I'm going to say this, like when I started paranormal investigating, it was always from like a very religious kind of standpoint. And that's how I would kind of talk to my family members about it, because they were very like superstitious. But the profound arrogance to go around and be like, no, my specific subset of my specific belief system is the explanation for all of these hauntings. And then and then forget that, like just look into their personal lives and like the stuff that they did. And it's like, I wouldn't trust buying a mattress from these people, let alone having them investigate in my house. It's nuts. It's insane.
Well, it's funny. Their original profession was mattress specialist, but then they moved on. So we're dropping knowledge here. We're dropping like unknown facts.
Leave off the last S for demons. That's a Sleepy's ad.
Yeah. What kind of mattress are they selling? I have to hear.
My God.
The special is called the Succubus, and it's very comfortable, let me tell you.
That's fair. Sucking. If you're gonna have a succubus, you at least need to have like a pillow top.
It's true.
So some sort of top. I gotta say, so speaking on of what Z, Mustafa, and Brandon have both also mentioned, Brandon and I many years ago worked with this team a long time ago in Ventura. And I remember one investigation where this guy was like, there's like 10 demons in this room right now. And I was like, I'm out. I'm never doing this again. I don't want to deal with him or these people. I'm done. Because I have done this for a long time. I met Brandon doing this when I was in my very, very early 20s. I've never, ever come across a demon. I don't think that's a thing that's ever going to happen to me. Demonologists are cool. They do their thing. But like anytime anybody experiences a haunting, they're just like, well, it's evil and it's a demon and that's the end of it. And I'm not about that life. I'm so not about that life. I'm so overhearing that from people. And ever since that guy said it, I was just like, nah, man, I'm not playing that game anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all agree there is a bit of a sensationalism in the paranormal television and movie world. And obviously we're in the middle of a documentary craze right now. Some would say we have some of the greatest documentaries ever being made during this generation. What are your thoughts overall? Because there's a lot of different ones, but there's been some paranormal ones and stuff like that, or in the genre. Brandon, because you made a documentary, which was factual and it was truthful and it was hard hitting. So tell us a little bit about your documentary and what your thoughts are in general with all the documentaries that have been out.
Right. There's a lot of film out there, a lot of content, but I think with the advancement of digital filmmaking, so there's a lot more content out there now, obviously, one. But two, there's so many stories that have been sensationalized to an extent that's just beyond belief in a way, where people just take a very kernel of truth and they blow it up into this thing that is just completely sensationalized, just completely not factual. So there are some really great films, paranormal as well as true crime, things like that. But it's so tough these days to know what's truth and what's something that's just pure urban legend or something that's just completely sensationalized. So it's tough. But making the film I did, talking about a cemetery that was demolished in the 60s here in Ventura, California, it was a very tough thing to do. It took about 4 years just to get through the research aspect of it. I think a lot of the documentaries you see now are not researched properly. And they just kind of take this one storyline. They bring in web sleuths and these crazy people that just sit behind their computer in the dark and talk about these things they really don't know anything about. And they make a whole documentary out of it or a series. So it could be very tough, but there's some great content out there with digital filmmaking now, and Amazon and Hulu and Netflix. You can really see some great content, but it's very tough because research is so important. Telling the truth is so important. So hopefully, as we go on and people consume this content more and more, we can see that people are actually doing factual research, which is something Mustafa does very well. And I'm very lucky to work with him in that regard.
I just want to say really quickly, one of my favorite things, we just talked about internet sleuths because we did an episode on the Cecil Hotel. So we get that too. But one of my favorite things that you do, and that from a long time ago, like you were always my mentor when it came to investigating, and I learned a lot from you. One of my favorite things that you have always done and that I've seen you show others and have grown into is showing them the history and focusing on the actual history of an investigation, no matter if it's paranormal or not. You focus in on the important parts of it and what it really meant to the people that were affected by it. And I think that's a big part of the paranormal that a lot of people seem to forget.
And Brandon, tell people a little bit more. Like we talked about the documentary, the cemetery that was demolished, but tying in the paranormal aspect of it, from what we all hear, that's a very active area. And part of it is, for those who maybe aren't familiar with the paranormal, when you interrupt or when you destroy where people have been laid to rest, you're basically opening up a lot of activity in a lot of ways.
Sure. I mean, actually going back to poltergeist, which we talked about earlier, some believe, or actually many believe, that this cemetery here in Ventura, California was actually the basis for the concept of poltergeist, where they actually went in and demolished over 3,000 graves. I mean, we're talking people from all over the world. If you were to take a dart and throw it at a map, no matter where you hit, someone from that part of the world probably moved here to Ventura, was interred and buried in this place, and actually had their grave desecrated. So you go in and you have such an emotional response to these situations, and you actually take away something that meant so much to these people. And we're talking about from the early 1700s to the late 1900s, that these people very much believed in death and they believed in their final resting place. And when you take that from someone, not only mentioning the families that tried to go find their loved ones to visit them, having that taken away can probably cause some kind of disturbance in some way. So it's a very emotionally charged situation, and a lot of the people that live around what they refer to as Cemetery Park today, which is actually a cemetery with over 3,000 people there, there's a lot of emotional activity there, and a lot of the people that live right next to it have paranormal activity. So I'm not really surprised that there's been disturbances and people experiencing things. A lot of people that actually live next to it don't even know that it's a cemetery. They think it's a dog park, even to this day, and they have no idea that you have Taoists, Native Americans, and people from all over the world buried in this place, and something that was so dear to them, something that meant so much to them, was actually stolen from them. So that emotionally charged situation can really cause a lot of activity at times, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just here to be a troll as per usual, but I just want to say you're welcome, Brandon, and the world for this documentary, because I made him move to Ventura. So you're all welcome.
All right. Well, Z, Ghosts-n-Heauxs is heavy on research. I mean, you guys cover, the best part is if you go to the Ghosts-n-Heauxs podcast page and just look at the titles alone are going to draw you in. And I can't say half of them on this broadcast, but that's okay. So, but y'all are heavy on research. Y'all are heavy on the details. So obviously documentaries are supposed to be. So what are your thoughts on all the docs that are, essentially happening right now?
I don't watch a lot of them because I know myself, and I know that most of them will just really make me really mad, because there are so many people, like you guys were mentioning before, just it's full of people that don't really know what they're talking about. They're just speculating. And that's a huge problem in the paranormal and a lot in true crime. One, obviously, because it's fresh in my mind, but the Elisa Lamb documentary that just came out. I guess it was only 4 episodes. And from what I'm gathering, watching people talk about it online, there's not a whole lot of information given right away. It's all kind of like they save the important part, like what actually happened, for the very end.
Oh yeah.
And it's mostly just like it's like an attention grab, and it feels kind of gross. But on our end, we do super in-depth research to find out, because we're paranormal investigators. And so when cases tease that, they're like, oh, maybe it was a ghost that made her do all of these things. I'm like, what is the history here? What really went on? And I feel like a lot of documentaries, especially modern ones within the last not even 5 years, are kind of like, we're just going to gloss over the actual facts and just put out a lot of buzz phrases to get people to watch this, which, again, it's just kind of gross. But we did an episode a while ago on Elisa Lamb, the case itself, and also the history of the Cecil Hotel, which a lot of people don't actually know the history of that hotel itself. I think it was 2016, Danielle, my co-host, and I were in LA for DragCon, and we knew that the hotel was there, and we're like, okay, we want to go to there. And if you're sensitive at all in any way to the paranormal, you can feel the building watching you from a distance. You just go in there, and because of everything that has gone on there are multiple suicides, murders, people like Richard Ramirez spent a lot of time there, and it's just a heavy, dark building. And so if somebody with mental illness, like Elisa Lamb had, goes to somewhere like that, in my opinion, it's probably gonna mess with you a little bit. And so, no, her death was not paranormal. It was sad.
Yeah.
Someone was mentally ill, stopped taking their medication, and it got really bad, which can happen. But, and also other documentaries that I've tried to watch, they either just sensationalize really random weird things, just random conspiracies from the depths of the internet. There was one I can't remember the name, they did on Jean-Benet Ramsey, and I had to turn it off because it was absolutely bananas. Like, what? So it was something like cat aliens or something. I'm like, I can't.
They get so extreme with some of these, especially in true crime. I think I was watching a series that I had to turn off where this one guy thought his father was the Zodiac and killed JonBenet and killed, and I was like,
Ed Edwards.
oh, honey, is he also Jack the Ripper? Like, calm down.
Is he?
But
Also
I will say that I have. He is. He's everyone. He's every woman. Just kidding. That's a song by Whitney Houston. But I will say one of the things that I want to see or I treasure in certain documentaries is empathy and like, I don't want to call them victims, but survivor stories, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to see. Like, I was very interested in Netflix's The Ripper documentary because it was talking about like the socioeconomics of the time, about women's rights and how that impacted the case. Like, it gave real life accounts, and it came from a very empathetic view. My whole thing is like, I love it, like empathy and things. So that I've seen a few out there.
Yeah.
The one thing I loved about the Nightstalker documentary was
agreed
the way that it was told from the perspective of the people working the case, but also the people that survived that really heinous time.
Yeah, and they didn't glorify the sensationalism of the situation. Like, again, the Ripper documentary on Netflix, they didn't even talk about him until like the last episode. Like, it was all about like what was happening to these people, what was happening during this time. And I think that shows a real, besides empathy, just a real intelligence when you're exploring the topic.
Can I just say, I think one of the most important things that I'm getting from everybody so far is that we all care about what we're doing, which not a lot of paranormal investigators do. And it seems like more than anything in the end is all of us care about people, and we all care about is what is going to happen to all of us in the end. Yeah. And I think that is such an important thing that a lot of people that are weekend warriors and are into just like investigating on the weekends seem to forget that these were real people, and that we're dealing with history, and we're dealing with like people that existed in the world, and there are family members of them that are alive that are worried and thinking about what might have happened to them. And I think that's one of the best parts about like the panel we have today is we have people that legitimately care about the history and the actual, not realizations, but what actually happened to them, everything. And that is part of what makes the paranormal, to me, so personally gratifying, is knowing that there are people that really want to prove that there is something that happens in life after death, but also we want to show the history of it, and we want to show that their lives were not pointless, that they had a meaning, and that they did these things for a reason, and we're here to show that.
And
I will
Ashley,
say
Anastasia,
honestly,
go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to say the three of you. Go ahead.
No, go.
Well, I was going to say the three of you could not have said it more perfectly, which I was going to lead into Formula for a Haunting, because Mustafa and Brandon, everything, when it comes to facts are interesting, and being real is interesting. And that's exactly what Formula does.
Yeah. I mean, just to piggyback off of what everybody else was saying, whenever you're doing any type of project, the biggest thing that I like to look for, even if I'm working with people, is it a passion for them, or do they at least want to have enthusiasm? Not enthusiasm to have a book, or enthusiasm to like be on TV, or is it enthusiasm, which that can be there, that's fine, but enthusiasm to do the work. And for Formula of a Haunting, that's everything that we've just been trying to really remind ourselves of, every single time, every case we went on, every hour of every case is what are the facts, what are the facts, what are the facts, what are the facts, what are the facts. And I've been in situations with like other investigative teams or other people where, you know, they'd come into evidence, and it even happened to me on the show where it's like I'm sitting there, and when we were in Fort Stanton, I'm staring down this hallway with Daryl, and we had this like crazy scary moment, and like I could have fought and said no, this thing that we saw was paranormal. Like I'm like, I could have, if I cared about getting my evidence on TV, like that's there. You know, there's people who have done that, and I know, and I've heard stories of people on other shows and stuff, or they want this thing to get on TV, and you know, it's like, well, what happened? Well, you know, this happened. I was talking to some flashlights, and then this happened, so it's definitely paranormal. It's like, all right, well, you know, we've thrown out so many things as a result, and it's like, why? It's like, well, because, there's no way to prove that it's outside the realm of, you know, of normalcy. So Brandon says it best. If it ain't normal, it's paranormal. So we go through the paces of trying to disprove that it's normal, and see where it could be normal, where it can't. We test everything, and then, you know, that's the methodology, and that's the whole point of this series. And it's, you know, pretty much based off of what we're doing with the book. Is there is no real attempt at a kind of collective methodology that also addresses this like rampant phenomena of, you know, false positives. Like, no, let's, you know, are we right? Do we know everything? Absolutely freaking not. But like, this is what we were able to gather. And if there's other people that pick that up and run with that, like, oh, I'll be over the moon. That'll be so cool.
I will always say that, and this is something that I've lived my life by when it comes to the paranormal, is personal experience is not evidence. Your personal experience is amazing. I'm really glad that everybody got to have it, but your personal experience is not evidence. And I will die on that hill happily, because it's not. Like, I've had so many personal experiences that I cannot prove happened, so I cannot use that as evidence. And none of us can, and will, or hopefully will.
No.
And I think that's one of the great things that you guys are doing, is you're not taking your personal experiences, you're taking evidence that you have worked scientifically to prove. You were taking data and everything that you need to show this is what's actually happening. And I think that's so important to the paranormal world, because I think we've all dived into this, like, and I'm going to say it, and I know it sounds terrible, but we've dived into this weird right-wing, like, ghosts exists, but white privilege doesn't, living, you know, where we're just like, well, that was ghosts, but nothing else. And I think that's so important that you guys are actually showing the science behind it, and you're trying your best to really be like, okay, well, here's our data, here's what we're going to prove. And I don't know, I've always stood behind that, and it's kind of a weird hill to die on, because a lot of people want to fight you about that.
But it shouldn't be. And I think that's one of the things that I want to point out. All this whole group of people on this panel are extraordinary for being empathetic and also being scientific minded, and also at the same time, you know, having experiences, but knowing that not necessarily their experiences don't qualify a scientific area. But I think pop culture in general has a very interesting view of what paranormal research looks like, or paranormal, like what a paranormal team looks like. You know, it's like either like there's some kind of like mystical being badass, or they're bumbling like conspiracy theorists. And I think this panel proves that that's not the actuality. And well, in this case, at least.
Right. And for anyone who's wondering, you know, formula for a haunting, this, y'all go to real places. So what's great about it is this is evidence that Brandon collected back in 2009. So if you want, number one, if you want to see what Brandon would look like as one of the Backstreet Boys, watch it. But secondly, if you want to see Mustafa and Brandon take all that footage and analyze it with 2021 viewpoints and technology, that's the cool thing about it, is you guys in a half hour or less, whether it's the Velisca Axe house or the Adobe house, you guys are going to some of the most notoriously well-known haunted places. And Brandon, the fact that you saved all that. How cool is it for you to go back and look over everything?
It's really weird, honestly, looking at it, you know, but again, like having that data, the same mindset I have today was what I had back in 2006, even starting in 2006. I've been very lucky to work with some of the most brilliant scientists, medical doctors, and engineers in the field. Working with Dr. Harry Clore since 2010. He's the only person in history to receive 2 PhDs simultaneously in any discipline, and having him as a mentor and a colleague and someone I trust very well, mentoring me through that process.
Me, by the way.
Yeah, actually,
I'm Dr. Harry Clore.
That's her alias, by the way, just if no one knew. But
yeah.
But working with him has been fantastic, and having that experience and going to these amazing locations that a lot of times is associated with urban legend, or there's really not a true historical basis for these locations. It's amazing to go back with Mustafa and really look at that footage, pull up that data that has actually been tested by a third party, has been analyzed, and to see that and to look at the environmental conditions associated with it. What's the barometric pressure, the humidity, the temperature, all the environmental conditions, and really look at that through a new lens, like you mentioned, has been fantastic. And I really cannot wait to have more episodes coming out here very soon. And I can't wait for the book to come out as well.
And the book is essentially an extension of Formula of a Haunting, right? It's like Formula is almost kind of like a prequel to the book. Like you're setting us all up. Is that kind of what I
gathering? It's the book in action. You know, like a lot of times, like I find that like people they'll like look at theories of things, but then, you know, it's not lived, you know, which stinks. It's like, oh yeah, I could have knocked him out, and it's like, well, you didn't step in the ring. So I think with this is like, I'm really, really grateful that, you know, Brandon, he's been holding all this footage, and, you know, he hit me up and he's like, hey, what do you think about this? And I said, I think it's perfect, and it shows, okay, cool, this is what we're writing about, what we've been working on for so long, and now here, this is like a nice little appetizer before you go and you read the book. So you're going to see it in action, and then you can read about the methodology more in depth when it comes out.
Love it. And Z, let's talk a little bit about Ghosts-n-Heauxs, because the show's been going strong now for well over a couple of years. Wide range of topics, like we mentioned, but you're also an investigator. Is there anything, not only just from the show, but anything in your life that really stands out the most to you with everything that you've researched, everything you've experienced?
Her meeting me. That's it.
There you go.
What I was about to say. It's accurate.
Yeah.
And factual. Aside from that, though, I just really love finding random cases to discuss, because there are so many true crime podcasts. There's so many true crime and paranormal podcasts, but we started ours because there aren't, to my knowledge, any that are two women who are also paranormal investigators talking about all this stuff. So we were like, well, if we're not hearing it, let's just make it. So, and we also like to try and find, you know, cases that aren't covered and done to death. That was almost a pun, but
it worked.
I was like, I didn't mean it. So I like to go through, because, as you mentioned, Unsolved Mysteries, that's a show that I grew up on. And so I liked to, especially in the beginning, like skim my favorite Unsolved Mysteries website, which is unsolvedmysteries.fandom.com.
Okay.
And just look through there and see what they've got on there. And I think my favorite moment out of 103 episodes as of today would have to be the Tallman Haunting. It was on Unsolved Mysteries. The episode that it was on is on streaming, but that segment is not. They took it off. I looked into it, and they just said it was taken down for legal reasons. What those are, I don't know.
Oh.
But it was a haunting that occurred in Horicon, Wisconsin in the 80s. And it brings me the greatest joy ever to talk about it. But all of these paranormal, like haunting, weird things happening. And finally, they realized it was because they had bought they bought bunk beds for their children at a consignment store and kept it in the basement until they had 2 kids. Another one was on the way when they moved into the house. And so then they were moving the kids around into different rooms. They got bunk beds for one of the rooms and they brought them upstairs. And that's when the haunting really popped off. And so haunted bunk beds. I don't think I will ever experience that kind of joy ever again in a story. It has yet to be topped.
Well, I know for me on your show, there was definitely a top because you actually covered, there's not a lot of true crime coverage of people of color. And I will say that you are one of the ones that do cover that with empathy and amazingness. And I got teary-eyed just even thinking about it, but you covered a relative of mine. And I was just like, I was just in awe that somebody gave a good platform.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a platform, so anything I can do as far as that goes, I'm going to. But that one, like entertaining wise, Tallman Haunting. Personally, that the Emmett Till episode would definitely be. Yeah. It was rough, very rough.
It's rough,
but not. I have never heard it covered on another true crime podcast. Wow. And that is unfortunate. And I really wanted to tell his story, especially when I did, because it was right after George Floyd. And so I'm in Portland, and we had a lot of protests happening at the time. And so I was like, it's gonna suck because that story kills me. But it felt really important to share not only the story of Emmett Till, but my experiences as a woman of color in the United States. And so that would be my second one. Was my Emmett Till story, and because it was just myself and our producer that day, and so having that conversation, it was hard but necessary. And so after we put out that episode, we donated that month's Patreon earnings to the Emmett Till Foundation.
And to connect everything, Anastasia, you are related to Emmett Till.
Yeah, he was my father's cousin, and there's a whole thing about him getting out of the South, my dad and stuff. So, but it was just, yeah. It's just, and like I have a true crime podcast, and I can't even like broach the subject because I'm just like, you see me, I'm like, so.
I remember learning. I didn't learn about him until I was in college, and I was a Black Studies major. So if I had been anything other than what major I had picked, I probably would not have learned anything about him, possibly ever. Yeah. And so it's an very important piece of history, unfortunately.
And I just love that all of you guys are just covering like really important things for people that haven't had these stories voiced before. I really appreciate that.
And it goes back to what we talked about, everyone having empathy, everyone trying to respect those that are no longer here. And that's exactly what, to me, as a fan of Brandon and Mustafa, that's the core of what you guys do. Like, yes, you're all about science. You're all about doing everything to the nth degree to cover your bases. But when it comes down to it, you guys are such an amazing team because you're good people and you want to treat the paranormal as if, they were living beings, which they were. And a lot of the world doesn't do that. And so that's why I wanted to have you on for a number of reasons. But you guys have had so many experiences, whether it be on Ghost Hunters or whether it be on other investigations. I'm going to go to you first, Brandon. Is there anything that stands out more so than anything else that you want to discuss?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Probably 2008, RMS Queen Mary, Long Beach, this amazing ocean liner, Cunard White Star line. I mean, such amazing history, World War II history. I was there with another investigator, investigating the first class pool changing stalls, and we captured a piece of footage to this day has not been explained by any third party, by anyone that I've actually consulted. And it's something that really drives my research and my passion to this day. And it's something that I watch probably once a week because it's so unbelievable, and something actually we'll be talking about here very soon.
Believe it or not, we've actually shown this on the show. We've actually shown that evidence that you have done on the show. It is unbelievable and just brilliant.
Yep. Would you want to go into detail or do you want to save it?
We'll wait for the next episode. Actually, not this episode, the next one after that, Formula the Haunting. But
yeah,
it's it's a piece of footage that got Dr. Harry Clore involved and many other professionals from technical industries, people that usually would not get involved. You know, these people that are very logical, very scientific minded. They saw this footage, and we've actually gone back multiple times over the years trying to recreate it. I've been there with special effects artists. I've been there with engineers. I mean, people try and find, was it the Queen Mary trying to mess with us? And to this day, it remains unexplained.
Go ahead, Z.
Oh, the Tallman Haunting episode of Unsolved Mysteries is actually a segment on the same episode they did on the Queen Mary.
Whoa.
really?
All right.
I know that.
So, Mustafa, what do you got for us? So you've been investigating for quite some time, and obviously you've been alongside Brandon. So you guys are hell of a duo. So is there anything to you, one or two things that really stand out?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, the reason why I investigate the paranormal, and this is, I think, why Brandon and I work so well together, is he always says that there's one thing that unites us all, and it's the idea that we're all gonna die. This gravy train's ending. We're all gonna have this final stop. And I think when you have that in mind, and you realize that you're just this meat bag, and the only real ego that you have is doing something that's meaningful, whatever that is, whatever it is that makes you feel exhilarated in your life, that's what you want to do. And that's what you should go after tooth and nail, and not come up with excuses as to why you can't do it. The mind's a very powerful thing, as we all know. So I would say that probably one of the things is just the fact, and as Care Bear as this is going to sound, but like, you know, at the audition for the show, and I'm like around all these producers that I don't trust at all, and a bunch of other people who are auditioning for this show that I don't trust at all, and like, because I don't even trust myself, and I'm just like, I just want to stick to why, you know, that little kid in my house that I grew up in, like why I wanted to investigate the paranormal. I cannot you know, hoe this out. No offense to Ghosts-n-Heauxs, but like I cannot like be this person who sells themselves and like betrays his childhood self, and like literally visualizing stabbing like 8-year-old Mustafa in the back. Like, don't do this. And that's what kind of carried me through the whole thing. And then I meet Brandon, and we're investigating Widow's ranch out in Calabasas, California. And I was like, wow. Oh, this is what it's like to work with like an investigator who's like genuine and authentic. And that carried me through. And that was the number one decision when I decided to actually even do the show. So it was very, 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 very rewarding for me, because it was like a vindication of all those years of like, you know, not hanging out with friends, or like spending tons of my own money and time, and like getting weird looks from people where it's like, okay, cool, this is what it should be like. Nice. So that's probably one, because as amazing as it is to investigate the dead, I'm way more concerned about living. Like that should be the number one thing, because this is going to end. This is going to freaking end. So enjoy it while you can. And then the second thing I would say is, and I won't mention anything that happened on Ghost Hunters, but I was at an event in Old Nazareth Hospital in Mineral Wells, Texas. I brought my wife with me. We're investigating this one floor, and I just get, you know, you get those feelings. Like, I feel like there's something there, and I start following, and I felt like something's trying to get away from me. Kind of like what we had in Madison Seminary, Brandon, like we're cornering. And every time I would do it, you know, EDI, we would get changes in pressure and temperature, and it would happen, and it would leave, and then I'd go and I'd find it, and then I finally felt like I was annoying this thing so much, you know, that I started getting responses on the EDI. But as that happened, my wife fell ill. And then she doesn't feel so well. So I'm thinking like, okay, maybe, it got to her, like whatever. And then like, take her downstairs, and you had some people who were there at the event and they're like saying prayers over her. And I'm like trying not to roll my eyes, but they were really great and they helped her out a lot. And, I'm not saying anything bad about them. They were actually really, really cool people. And they helped her through it, and that was good. But then nothing happens on that floor. Then I go back with another group at this event, and same thing. I start getting this feeling. I start cornering till we get to this one location, and then down a line of like 8 people, like I start feeling this weird pain in my left side, and then I'm like, okay, and then I look and I don't say anything, and I see another person and they kind of wince on their left side, and then the third person's like, they don't say anything, and then we all look at each other, and then I'm like, how do you guys feel? And they're like, I feel pain on my left side. 2 other people, it goes down, and then like the 5th guy, same thing like my wife, passes out. We have to get him a wheelchair, put him in it. And then again, like nothing happens. 3rd time in the night, another person's there, same thing. They start getting that same pain in the left side, and they can't breathe. I'm like, all right, let's get out of here. So like, I know like we always say it's not like, that was one of the first times I ever went, and I was like, okay, this is clearly something that is like making people feel some type of way, or it's bad, that I came across, that I could say for certain. So like, out of all hundreds of investigations, like that's the only time I ever came across something that was like gnarly. So for me, again, it's personal experiences, but we actually captured EVPs. There was somebody who worked there who was there at the event. They captured some EVPs and some like weird visual anomaly. And then we also had, the hits on the EDI, and then plus the personal experiences. And so it was really, really, really strange to me. And I felt kind of like a bad husband, because my wife, whatever, like, it was like her second paranormal investigation she went on. She's like, oh, my vapors. And she's like dying. I'm like, oh man, I feel bad.
It's not to say that personal experiences can never be evidence. It's when it's by itself, it's not evidence. But when you have things backing it up, and you have evidence to be like, okay, yes, this was something that happened to me, and yes, now we have evidence for it. That's different. Like, there's a lot of lines to it, and there's a lot that none of us completely understand. But at some point, you have to actually consider the fact that after a while, maybe something is happening for a reason. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, it was weird. It was really weird.
That is wow, just incredible. To wrap things up, go ahead, Anastasia, or Z, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say a quick story about the last time I investigated before everything shut down. We were at someone's home and had our equipment out. My friend is a psychic medium, one of our team members, and she's like, I feel like there's an older woman that comes a lot to visit the house, and it feels kind of like she's sweeping, like coming in. She'll come in and sweep out like negative energy, and I can kind of feel her right now. And I had my Ovilus device, and it had been not doing anything. And normally I take the whatever nonsense words it spits out with a grain of salt.
Right.
But she was talking about sweeping, and the girl whose house we were at was talking about, my grandmother, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as my friend had said the word sweeping, the Ovilus pops up with the first thing it said in the 45 minutes we'd been there. And I'm like, okay, well, that's too weird of a word. It's not in English, and it's also gibberish to me. I've never heard it before. It said hippid. Like, I don't know what that means. So I looked it up, and it took a minute to find, but it was a Filipino word that means to tidy or to clean.
Whoa.
And so I was like, hey guys, this is a really weird thing that just happened. And the girl kind of turned a little bit green, and we're like, but why though? And she's like, well, my grandma was married to a Filipino man. And I was like,
and there's a good chance he knew the word sweeping in English.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, well, that's bananas. That was okay.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah. So
I think what it comes down to in the end, is paranormal is for educating yourselves, and it's for fun in the sense that, you know, we enjoy what we're doing. We want to learn what we're doing. We get to spread that wealth through the world through science. As much as the paranormal world is a pseudoscience, we still get to use really amazing tools to do what we do. And I really hope that anyone that is listening to this panel or podcast or whatever today learns something from that, because we all really care about what we do. And the paranormal world can be very difficult. It can be very bullying sometimes. But in the very end, there are a lot of people that care about this in a very, very real way and really want to prove what we are doing is good and that is for the betterment of society. And I hope that this panel today shows everybody that.
And that's brilliantly said. And to follow it up, I just want to go round table here. Let's say there is someone who's watching this who, you know, yeah, they're entertained by the pop culture aspect of paranormal, but they deny the existence of the paranormal in their heads. What's a quick message you would send to them? Anastasia, I will go to you first.
Oh, do your research.
There you go. Yeah, that works. And Z, how about you?
Be open.
There you go.
You never know.
Mr. Mustafa.
Just JKL, man. Just keep living, like Matthew McConaughey says. Yeah, I would agree. Do your research, look into it, and just understand that there are things that we are finding out and learning every single day. And Nikola Tesla's a pretty smart guy, and he says that the more we study non-physical phenomenon, we will advance more than we did in all of human history. So non-physical phenomena is where it's at. Tesla knew what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Brandon?
You know, I live by energy is neither created nor destroyed. So we are firing off neurons in our brain constantly. We have energy all throughout our body. What happens to that energy when it dies, and does it retain consciousness? That's the big question. So we've explored the ocean to a great extent, not as much as we should. We've explored space to a great extent. I think the final frontier, as Star Trek as that sounds, I think life after death is that next final frontier. And I think that if we look into it with a scientific lens and a scientific scope, I think that we're going to have a lot of answers here in the next century. So it's very exciting.
No question about that. And we thank you so much for joining us for this panel. Everyone watching, thank you. And of course, what a panel we had. Make sure you find everyone on social media. Z, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at GoodnightGoldie, Goldie, and then Ghosts-n-Heauxs anywhere, HEAUXS. Because we're
there we go. Mustafa.
You can find me at thickalbanian.com. No, I'm actually no.
That's not what?
M Gatollari. Don't go to that URL. M Gatollari on Instagram and Top Gatto on Twitter.
There we go. Brandon.
You can find everything on my website, brandonjalvis.com. It's got all the links there and all the Formula Haunting stuff too. Cannot wait for the book as well. Make sure to look out for that. Anastasia.
You can find me at Anastasia W on Twitter, at Anastasia Wash on Instagram, Anastasia TV on YouTube, and Anastasia W on TikTok.
Boom, yeah. Ashley Troub.
Ashley Troub on everything. Really easy. I have a very dumb white name. Also, where can we find you?
Real simple. I'm at Jay Quasto, of course. We are at Haunts and Hops on social media platforms. If you're watching and listening for the first time, jump aboard. Join us every week. We'd love to have you. And with that said, it's time for all of us to say goodbye. This is Haunts and Hops WonderCon 2021 edition. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.